Mary and I moved into our first apartment together in 1996. Having known one another for 15 years, we had become each other's companions, confidants, and best friends. I think when you find a friend like that, you hold on to them for as long as you can, and we did a pretty good job in doing just that. We shared in so many things, it's hard to pin them all down in a short time, but I will say to you what I tell people about Mary, and that's she was the closest thing to a wife I ever had in this life. We truly loved each other unconditionally. After we had moved in, we made it a point to make our home as interesting for others as we did for ourselves. So we were always rearranging furniture, changing artwork on the walls, and finding ways to make the space unique and interesting for anyone who came to visit. We had this large wall-sized bookcase with various sized shelves in our living room. Along with our books, Mary would display her collection of Roseville pottery and a beautiful lamp which had belonged to her grandmother. But there was one shelf in which none of our items that we had would fit. One day, Mary said, "Scott, you're a set designer. Why don't you design a little room for that shelf?" Both of us realized at that moment this would become our answer for that too small shelf. We bought supplies to construct the three tiny walls and then began collecting small furniture for it. It didn't take us long. It became a mission to complete the room for Christmas, which was coming up very quickly. We completed it with only a few days to spare. I remember the night I came home from work. All the lights were turned low, the candles were lit, and the wine poured. Mary had gone out and purchased a little tree for our room and wanted to surprise me with it. We sat back and looked at our little creation while on the stereo our favorite carol, Silent Night by Mannheim Steamroller, played. Both of us getting a bit teary-eyed at the memories of Christmases past, while at the same time celebrating the one we were now having. And today, whenever I hear that song, I am taken back to one of the happiest Christmases I ever had. Sadly, we lost Mary in early 2002. Our little room I dismantled when I moved away, the walls folded and packed away with all the furniture she and I had collected. There in its box, I stored it away for 6 years, not wanting to look at it for a while because the good memories of it could not be revived in another setting. In 2006, I moved back to St. Petersburg and lived with my brother Cleve. The box with the little room found its way under my bed and stayed there until the day my new friend, Tom Chasm, came over for a glass of wine and some of our fun conversations. We were talking about Mary and our friendship when I said, "Oh, wait, Tom, I've got something to show you." Pulling the box from under the bed, I wanted to show him what she and I had created. I unfolded the now tattered little walls and set them up on the coffee table and began pulling out all the little furniture. I remember Tom's eyes lighting up at the sight and saying, "Oh, wow, I loved this." When he said that, I knew he had as much appreciation of it as both she and I had those years before. Christmas of 2009 was coming soon, and at that moment, I knew what I wanted to do for my new friend. Tom had a bookcase in his living room. I found a way to get the shelf measurements of the top shelf without his knowledge, so my gift to him was about to take shape. Tom had a love for Italy, having spent many vacations there. He talked about the town of Lucca in the Tuscan countryside and how much he loved it. So a Tuscan villa it would be. It was then I approached my dear friend and neighbor, Gary, to help me with this project. He was the best person to ask because his ability of building things is really second to none. Even though this was a small little project, when I asked him, I got his normal response of, well, sure. We both sat in the yard while he sawed pieces, glued, and screwed them together, and I sat painting the little walls and the floor. And all of the furniture Mary and I had collected were now going to live in an Italian villa. Once done, Gary seemed as pleased as I at the outcome, which made it all the better. So Tom's little room, which he later dubbed Villa Bella Luca, was born. Tom was really happy with his little Christmas gift. Within a few months, he had already begun ordering new pieces to add to his collection and to make it truly his own. I was so happy that once again our little room had a new life and was now living in Tom's bookcase. It was during those years Tom introduced me to his dear friend Vicky. As soon as we met, I knew she would be one of those friends you'll have for life. She and Tom had shared a long history together, and hearing their stories of times together reminded me of Mary and I. I knew immediately that she was stuck with me for the long run. Tom told me, even though I don't know if the story is true or not, that once Vicky saw his Italian villa, she commented that she'd love to have her living room and kitchen painted in the same color as his tiny room. Immediately, Tom said, well, ask Scotty. I bet he'd do it. And so from that little room, I actually got a paying gig from it, painting Vicky and Matthew's rooms, which, if I do say so myself, turned out quite fabulous. Tom and Vicky and I got together often for creative little endeavors. Once, Vicky presenting me with a tiny gold chair she had fashioned from a wire muzzle which holds a champagne cork in the bottle. Little did she know that one day I'd find a use for it. 2016. This was the year when Tom passed away. Yet another loss which we all had to face. As his family were cleaning out the contents of his condo, I asked if I might have his little room back. Of course, they said. Not only did I get the room back, but I also inherited his little black cat, Luca. Not having a place to display the room, I brought it home and I set it up for one more time as it had looked when I gave it to Tom, if only to get a last picture of it. As I shot the photo, Luca jumped on top of it as if she knew it had belonged to her daddy. It's the sweetest picture I have of both the room and her. She lived another 3 years after that, after becoming my little Luca. Putting all the tiny furniture in a box to be stored away until I could find another use for it, the wooden box went on a shelf in my garage. For 6 years, it sat there collecting dust. Each time I'd see it, I would think, well, maybe one day. But about a month ago, as I was moving items around on that shelf, I looked at that room taking up too much space there and not having the heart to throw it out. It was at that moment I decided to give myself a Christmas present by bringing it back to life once more. Again, I asked Gary if he would help me with his measurements, cut a few new walls. Well, sure, he said. So this Christmas, I am remembering both Mary and Tom while celebrating my dear friends Gary and Vicky. All of us are responsible for bringing the joy and love around again this year.